What's up, guys? You have been waiting to find out what's going to happen with the 55 Chevy that's been in the back of the shop for almost 2 years now. Well, the answer is the guys from Deboss Garage have come down to the StanceWorks headquarters, and we're going to thrash on this thing over the next day and a half.
Yeah,
day, and we're going to cut the entire thing apart, cut the front end off. We're putting a Camaro front end on this thing, tons of new suspension components. We're going to put a 4-link on the rear end and get it rolling and out of the shop. You guys are going to what?
We are going to drag that then down to Pismo Beach, LS swap it, put a manual transmission in it, get it running, get it sort of legal for the road, and then drive it 3,500 miles home.
It's easy. It should be a fun project, a little bit atypical for the channel, but I'm excited to dive into it. These guys are a hoot to watch. If you haven't seen their channel, head over. You can watch the first episode of this build on Deboss Garage. Subscribe, check them out. They do awesome stuff across the board.
Looking forward to it, man.
All right,
let's get into it.
So the 55 Chevy project that I introduced all the way back in the beginning of 2021 is finally getting a new home with the boys from Deboss Garage. And they want it for the exact same reason that I did, because it's completely rust-free.
So watch me spin this up. I thought, you know what, I need to feel it, so I'm not gonna grab an impact. You just crack it loose and pull it up by hand.
According to Rich and the boys, who hail from Ontario, Canada, finding a truck with a patina like this means that the underside would be completely rusted away. Removing 70-year-old hardware without the use of a torch is a borderline foreign concept to these guys. But believe me when I say I was more than happy to rub it in their face that this is the status quo for Southern California. Given that, we made quick work of disassembling the 55, getting it stripped down to just the bed, the body, and the bare chassis. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with this truck or what's even going on here, I bought this project when I first started my channel just 2 years ago. It's been relatively low on the priority list, and once I realized just how much work it was going to take to build something I was truly happy with, I decided it was probably best to pass this project on to some guys that I knew would actually see it to the finish line. You see, Rich and the gang are familiar with a project like this one. Not only do they know their way around a truck, they know how to get one put together quickly, which is why I didn't hesitate to agree when they said they wanted to smash out an almost complete build in just 48 hours. The only problem? They wanted to get started literally on the day that I returned from SEMA. To say we were all exhausted is an understatement.
Could nearly pass the safety with that. The truck as is nearly passed the safety in Canada.
Leaf spring cracks in half, but the e-brake still works.
Does the e-brake work?
Look at this. You could sell this hub as a whole to like somebody who
Has a 55.
Yeah, new rubbers in the brake cylinder, and it's good to go. Clips for sale on eBay, $400. Some mint brake shoes, still good. Now these are the good kind, full of asbestos. I can't believe I'm saving this e-brake cable.
Given that I had just returned from SEMA, I did have one other obligation that I had to attend with my recently completed Ferrari project. I loaded up the trailer and took off for the evening, leaving the boys behind to do what they do best. I gave them free rein of the shop, told them where every tool I could think of was, and then left them to their own devices. I knew they'd make some good progress, but I only planned to be gone for a few hours. I figured, how much could they really get done?
Are they really just coming out like that?
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy. What happens when you pull a rivet together, you squeeze it so the steel inside swells inside that hole. So even if you cut the head off, she's still big. So an air hammer would do great. Text Mike and see if he's got one. Before we cut the front frame, we're going to level the back half and the front half on the front ears. And then we are going to level side to side, and that at least we have some sort of reference to put the front when we weld the front on, because we need the front ears of the Camaro to also be level so we don't weld the suspension like this. My alignment guy is gonna freak. Happy with that? Good, cutter. So the issue is, because our leaf spring is broken, we don't know where the exact center of it is. Even if it wasn't broken, the springs could be sagged, and we're kind of guessing. So best thing we thought to do is to put a level on the shackle, keep the level straight up and down. That will move the axle to the same spot. Then we're gonna scribe from the axle, center of the axle up. Then we'll make a mark farther back. And that way, when we cut, we can put the tire roughly in the same spot. So after we found our center mark from our axle and found a point way at the back, now we have a reference point from the back. So from the very back, we can find our center of our new axle, and we can also measure and record where our radiator support is gonna go. So from our central point at the back, that's not gonna be touched. We are 69 3/4 to the inside of this T, so we can measure and make sure that our frame sits like this properly when we weld it together. We also measured the height from the floor. Now that we've since we've leveled our frame front and back and side to side, we can measure off the floor. Hopefully we don't move anything, but we measure from the floor down, and that's 23 to the top. And then because our ears might be in a different spot, we also measure center to center on these radiator supports, and that is 30 inches. So we can pop these rivets off and then move these brackets over to whatever. I don't even know how that's done. We'll figure that out afterwards. But now we can cut the frame and roll it outside, and we should pretty well be done with this. Andy, Sawzall, King? We scrap it, so it's just Sawzall, everything.
With no fear, the Deboss gang cut the entire front of the truck clean off. Nothing in front of the cab mounts is important from here on out, including the engine, because this one is going directly in the trash. It's completely useless.
That was wrong. I think we're supposed to do again.
All right, so we've removed the stock 55 front suspension. That's because the leaf springs are broken and they handle terrible. They would not be able to keep you in a straight line if you're gonna do an engine upgrade. So we have to upgrade the suspension somehow. The best economical way that we saw that is to take a second gen Camaro or Firebird subframe and weld that right to the frame of the 55. A couple things to keep in mind: you will have to worry about your rad support and your bumper mount, but that is not the biggest thing. The biggest thing is trying to get it square and true to the frame so that your frame isn't sitting like this, this way, forward, back. There's a lot of measurements you gotta do, but it's straightforward, and we wanna show you guys how to do it. We're gonna upgrade the suspension a little bit on the Camaro. They're much better than the 55, but they're not fantastic. The geometry's a little off, caster's a little bit off, so it doesn't handle as good as it could, but you don't have to. This can be done on a very simple budget. These are anywhere from $300 to $800, depending on what's in your area. And It will greatly increase your stability and suspension smoothness of the ride. And because there's a lot of aftermarket support for LS swaps into Camaros, you can get bolt-on kits if you wanted to do an LS swap. Now we're gonna rebuild the engine and stick a new transmission in it because we like going into the nitty-gritty, and we're gonna show you that whole process. Doesn't mean that you have to. You can go to junkyard and grab a 5.3, 6.0 and just throw that in there, have tons of fun with it as it is in the stock Camaro suspension. We're gonna try and cram in a little bit more. When you do put the weight of the truck and the engine and transmission on this, the geometry of this will change where those tires end up. So most people weld them forward a little bit, and then as the weight comes on, those tires roll back a little bit. So about 3/4 inch to an inch. If we can get 4 or 5 guys to stand on there and compress it, maybe we'll try and weld it so that it stays put into that spot, and then we don't have to worry about how much it changes. We can put these tires exactly where the old ones were. Now, you could take this and stick it right underneath the frame, cut your front frame rail so it kind of butts up onto here, and then you can just weld it on the bottom. That kind of looks like a hack job. We don't really want to do that, so we're gonna gust it on the inside, clean that up really nice, flare it out a little bit so that it matches the side of the frame rails properly. So first things first, we're gonna roll this out. We're gonna roll the other parts out and get to work.
Yeah, it's way better.
Rich keeps saying these California bolts don't rot, but we broke off 3, so let's let them soak tonight and get them out in the morning.
Now keep in mind, this is all still progress that's happening in the handful of hours I've been away from the shop, all in one single evening. To say these guys work quick is an understatement.
Okay, so the bottom hinge was completely shot, and it's funny that the steel on the sides is in great shape. It just pulled out on the back of it. So what I did was I cut a piece of steel out of some square tubing that we had in the shop. I'm gonna put this down in the bottom here, like so. I took the top hinge off of the door because it was easy to get at. So you can see where the edge of the door is. And I'm adjustable anyway. So, but basically the edge of the door is right there. We'll double check that on the other side. I'm gonna use the passenger door as reference as to the height of this, even though that is adjustable on the hinge here. You can see the slots in there. So I can make the hinge go up and down on the truck side, and on the door side, I can make the hinge go this way. So I'm just gonna use some spray paint. We got a spray paint bomb. That'll mark where the holes are gonna go. Then I'm going to drill where the paint is, weld nuts on the back, and then weld this in place, put the door back on. Super simple. So it's 3 5/8 from the edge of the door to the edge of the bracket. So from here to there. 3 7/16 from the bottom of the door to the bottom of the hinge. So I might have to get, that goes there. Nice. So now just drill in the middle of that and then weld the nuts in the bottom. Okay, so they can slide. So I'll bolt them down now and then just tack them with the MIG welder, and then I'll weld them solid.
Now for a bit of clarification, when I say this truck is completely rust-free, it's completely rust-free for a truck that sat in a field for 30 years. There were a few spots that needed attention, the main one being the lower door hinge on the driver's side door pocket. But instead of over-engineering a fix that takes days to complete like I would do, Rich knocked out a solution in the matter of an hour.
Now it's just moving the hinges back and forth until it sort of closes. But all my bolt holes line up, so that's exciting. But, I gotta go in and hair more. That's not bad. I'm gonna leave it alone for now until we torque it back down again, and then I'll fine tune the last little bit. Top needs to come in a bit that way. The bottom can come out of here. But my gaps are okay. My gap is okay here. If anything, we can go a hair forward. But that'll do for now.
Now you may have been wondering what's going on with all of the grinding going on in the background. And the answer is, we want this thing to be clean enough to paint once the time comes. There's 70 years worth of dirt and rust we've got to take care of.
So just one last thing before we go. I'm just gonna clean up a bunch of these welds because they are just terrible. I don't know whether it was factory or somebody just had a terrible day and didn't care, but there's splatter all over the place, no penetration, and that probably was fine for the Camaro at its time. But we're gonna add a little bit of horsepower, so we're gonna add a little bit of weld. Really good. Yeah. Cabs off. Frame's cut. Put a new piece of steel in the back. Weld a couple nuts to the back of it.
Check that out.
Alright, so this is end of day one. Mike is back. He had some stuff to do with the Ferrari and SEMA, so he was gracious enough to give us a shot. But tomorrow we get Mike's expertise on helping keep this thing square and straight. So we'll be right back, and it will be tomorrow. And my eyes won't be bloodshot, and I won't be slurring my words because I'm really tired. Here we go.
All right, it's a new day. I'm done with all the Ferrari stuff. We're back in the shop. As said, these guys got all of the dirty work done, thankfully. Saved me a lot of effort. But now we've got to take this front clip, attach it to the 55 Chevy chassis. We need the front wheels of this thing to be about 50 inches or 50 3/4 in front of a line that we previously put on the chassis. So now we've got to do some careful measurements. We need to make sure that this chassis is square, that it's true, it's plumb. Just make sure that it's all right, because once we stick it to the old chassis, it's kind of one and done. So
The nice thing is, no matter if we weld the frame this way, that way, forward, backward, still gonna handle better than stock.
a lot better, especially considering it had completely broken leaf springs. So yeah, let's get this thing up in the air. Let's start cutting. Let's weld it, and hope that by the end of tonight, maybe we could have it on the ground.
You know what? That would be incredible, because we're actually ahead of schedule. I can't believe I'm saying that, but we're ahead of schedule. So we're feeling good. We had to book the trailer rental for a day earlier, but if we could have it rolling tonight, holy crap, that is incredible.
All right, let's go.
Come on. Yeah, let's get this out of the way.
So this dimension is eyeballed, 25 inches from wheel center line.
Yep.
But then measuring from the back, I just eyeballed it each side and then came back and measured from the back of the chassis up. It's 28 3/4, pretty spot on.
What if we put the level on it, make a mark on the tire, and then go across the tire?
Do that. Or
I
actually,
think
I have a laser. We could put just run a line straight across the top on the wheel center line.
so. That's the center of the tires, so that's got to be center in the wheel well. The issue is that when the suspension compresses, the tires go back about 3/4 to an inch. 1 inch, that's a lot.
Yeah, let's start all over.
You start another drum.
Now the obvious goal is to graft the 71 front end to the 55 chassis, but the way we want to accomplish it is as close to factory as we can conjure while knocking the whole project out in a matter of 2 days. By interlocking the two chassis one inside of the other, we can get a lot of overlap and therefore a lot of strength from the two existing parts. But if we want the truck to track correctly, we've got to get everything as straight as possible.
These rivets also held the bracket for the clutch. We're going with a hydraulic clutch. So rather than taking them out because they swell in there, I just grinded the heads off the back of it. I'll just grind them flush and then just weld them again because they're tight and they haven't moved. Nice, quickest way to keep the tab mount secure.
The job I was tasked with was successfully mating the two chassis together. After making sure the front chassis was true, straight, and plumb, I cut a pair of long notches that can slide inside of the 55's chassis rails so that we can weld everything thoroughly. As you might guess, this was a measure twice and then measure again before cutting anything, because if we mess this up, it requires a lot of surgery to correct. Any material we cut off that we wind up needing would need to be re-added to make sure the whole thing can go together appropriately.
This is the disappointment in the guy that works on imports.
The chassis that was in the Ferrari is 10 times worse than this. This is better
Yeah,
than
eh?
anything they ever built. Yep.
Really?
Nastiest crap you've ever seen.
Really?
Worst,
Interesting.
worst. So, I just like talking shit.
Yeah.
Seems like it's way. Oh. I'm like, yeah, that's way too long. Got a calf back like 2 feet.
Yeah, there's gonna be a bunch of guys going, Detroit Diesel, Tulsa.
There's also the chance that these rails bink, went like that once we cut the back end of it off, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. No, more than likely. That's why I said we've got lots of flex with it. So let's grab some C-clamps, clamp it in, and see where we're at. Okay. As long as we're tight on the bottom of the frame rails, we should work fine.
All right, got it loosely where you want it if I tighten this down?
Yeah.
Like butter.
I cut this wide knowing we need more than we need less. Like, uh-oh.
I can see your look of disappointment. Like, what happened?
Shit.
That took zero effort to clamp that thing.
Cool.
All right, take some measurements.
What do we do for this way? We could probably pitch it down. Like
Yeah.
an inch without even lifting that back.
That's the tricky part. We can change the caster like crazy, but even still, it's only this much. So even if you're off a couple inches, it's not.
In short, we've got this extra distance on our wheelbase.
Yeah, so right there were 26 and 7/16.
Okay, and then from here to here is 25, so we can cut it off of this or we can cut it off of this. That seemed easier, so if we know these are going to stay where they're at, we could take another piece of box tubing and finish the box in on that side.
Let's do that, because then we've got the support.
Yeah.
It can't like rip up then either, right?
Yeah.
Let's do that. 100%.
Cool. With our final measurements figured out, we put our game plan into action and made our final cuts. We cleaned up all of our edges and prepped them for welding, and made sure that all of the exposed steel was ground down to a new, fresh layer. With everything prepped, we slid the front end into its final resting place. And then we took one more round of measurements and made sure everything was level before we welded it into place.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
We don't get back.
I got mine lined up. You gotta come forward on this.
Yeah. Okay, you're on.
And then the whole thing's gotta go to Mike.
Mike. Okay.
Where's the?
You're good. You're just, I think you're catching that material on that ship.
You got it? Okay, we got her.
Okay.
We're good. Yeah.
Alright, she's on the mount.
And the rubber's in the back.
We got a lot of interference because
Yeah.
this isn't even.
So, maybe it's better that we measure. Yeah.
Unbolted.
You know what? No, because this is all one piece. But we can go off that mount. That mount goes onto that fender there, right? The inner fender right there.
Yeah.
Now, before permanently attaching the two halves of the chassis by welding them completely, we decided we should test fit the front end and make sure everything is going to clear. After all, it's imperative that the front wheels line up perfectly in the middle of the front wheel arches. After a bit of bending, cutting, and tweaking, eventually the front wheel wells fit over the new independent front suspension, but only just.
Oh no, so it's this that's hitting on the front
it's
there,
hitting the
yeah.
front.
Yeah.
And
So,
a lot of that's extra.
yeah, so like here I'm still hitting, right?
We removed and reinstalled the front end more than a dozen times before we felt like there was enough clearance in the wheel wells that we could actually send this thing down the road. After all, the front suspension needs to articulate and not hit any sheet metal, or it's going to clunk as this thing gets driven.
Let's throw a bolt in. If we can get a bolt in that top, and throw the tires on. Make sure that the wheels are kind of in the middle.
Right.
And then we're rocking. So we might as well, like, all this is the fender's all the way back. Doesn't matter if it's tilted up or down. Throw the tires on, see where the tires sit.
So we've got the whole front end clamped into place, it's tacked together. We've got the front wheels positioned in the fender wells. Now it's just a matter of kind of shimming it into place. I think we're going to move everything forward about a ½ inch to get it all perfect, because as the front wheels articulate, they're going to move back in the wheel wells about 3/4 of an inch. I want to make sure that when the weight is on the car, it looks proper. So with that, I think we're going to now move to the back end of the car. We want to make sure that our wheelbase is accurate. Before we lock anything into place in the front, we have to get the rear set up, mocked up, and in place.
Yeah, so we got this kit from Summit. Heights makes this. So it's just a bracket, but what it does is utilize the spring shackle rivet holes. You have to drill them out a little bit, and of course, make sure that they all line up. You might have to tweak one hole a little bit here and there. But once we've got the brackets on the front, we can position our axle in the back, make sure that our forelinks are all the same height. And then from there, we can measure forward again to the center line of our tires and make sure that the front isn't cocked like that. Now, Mike's pretty good, so I have complete confidence in him because it's been going really, really smooth.
That's brave. That's very brave of you. I appreciate the confidence.
Yeah, we also want to kind of see height-wise where we're at because the truck's sitting a little lower than we expected. Now we're going to put much bigger tires on it, so we should be okay. But we might have to end up C-notching the frames. I don't think we do, but we'll throw everything together, see where we're at, and then make our decisions as we go because that's how it's been working so far. So it's been working pretty good, honestly.
Right.
We are on this truck now for a solid 24 hours, and this is how far we've come. I'm very
ecstatic. In 24 hours, I mean, like we've been on one day and we went to the hotel and actually slept a good night's sleep too yet. So we didn't sleep till.
Anybody that watches my channel knows I'm a slow guy. This is definitely the fastest anything's ever happened in this shop, and it's definitely fun to be a part of. We're just flying through it. These guys are crazy.
So we are gonna paint the chassis a little bit. Got some nice Rust-Oleum. We're going with a matte black. I actually like the matte black.
With everything mocked up on the chassis side, we need to get the axle test fitted into place so that we can measure both its alignment with the chassis itself and to get the pinion angle perfect. Front's at full droop, so
Front's at full.
if we set this one up same height, in an ideal scenario, that would be full droop back here.
Yeah. Take the front right tire, put it on the left, and put the same distance to the floor as the front tire on the left. That'll tell us our ride height, then we can figure out the shock length, and then that'll get us somewhere close to the pinion. We gotta go up, way up, right? That's at 90.
That's kind of what I have done in the past.
Yeah.
So if it's 2 degrees, as long as the incline between them isn't also 2 degrees, so the U-joints are in line with each other, then it's okay.
Yeah. That's gotta be
spin
most
it vertical. Yeah, there you go. Now we're talking.
Okay. Now we're 178.
Oh, that's 2 degrees.
No.
180.
Yeah, you're right. Well, it's 178.8. It's got to go 0.8 degrees. Keep going. 0.2. 0.2. Still 0.2.
Yeah.
That's 0.9. That's good.
Yeah. So we've got 2 degree angle on our pinion. As it sits right now, we kind of checked it throughout the travel, make sure that our bars are all the same length. We're still just gonna tack that. We're not gonna weld that solid until we have our transmission in. If we run into issues with pinion angle, that's something that's annoying all the time. So we'll be blowing U-joints and feeling vibrations in our seat. We don't want that. So we just need like a little weight on this one.
So what we're trying to work out right now is exactly what the ride height of the truck is going to be. The main problem being we don't actually have the proper wheels and tires on hand. So we're kind of shooting in the dark, but we're going off some kind of base numbers, some base assumptions, and assuming we're probably going to have a 28-inch diameter tire. So what that involves right now is getting the axle, the proper height off of the floor, and then we also want to make sure that the truck is roughly at the ride height that we want so we can set everything up correctly once this thing is sitting on the ground. If we kind of mismatch everything right now, if we misshoot, we're gonna wind up with some suspension problems, and we don't want that. So ideally, we're gonna get this all set up correctly based on some guesses, but I think we all feel pretty good about it.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Now we just gotta set our wheelbase, make sure that the front is positioned exactly where we want it. That's why we set this up. Everything looks pretty good. We're gonna move the front forward about a 1/2 inch, and then finish weld it.
Unfortunately, we did not get the shocks for the back, and that's probably not a bad deal because we might have to move this out because our ride height is so low.
This is not a lot of difference here. I have a feeling we're gonna need to move this up quite a bit in order to have an appropriate length shock in place. At this point in the build, it seems like it's finally time to start laying down some welds. Everything is straight, true, and level. We need to burn it into place and commit to what we have. Now, as the viewers of my channel know, I haven't touched the MIG welder in a long time. But after a bit of discussion, for some reason, these guys decided I should don the hood and burn everything into place.
If you have a piece to go to fill in the
Find some
box that, go
what's
right
the
to that.
dimension on the height there?
So instead of making a single one, we're gonna fill the entire tube, the entire C with square tube. It's gonna be so strong. It's gonna be awesome when we jump it. This is just for the rivets poking through. We want this nice and tight against the frame, but there's a head of a rivet there, so we'll just leave some space for that.
So we got everything all welded. It's fully in place. It's not going anywhere. I feel pretty good about it. The way that we decided to do this was to essentially, as you guys saw earlier, kind of cut an L shape into the 71 Camaro subframe. We slid that into the 55 chassis, and then we used some 2x3 square stock, slid in between them to kind of box everything in. We cut it all to contour, really nice, and then we capped it with a piece of original chassis so that it's all kind of contiguous and flows like it was kind of made that way. I wouldn't say that it necessarily looks factory, but I don't think that anybody that winds up back in this wheel well is ever gonna say, man, that was thrown together. This thing is super stout. I feel really good about it. I can send these guys down the road feeling confident that whatever trouble they get into next, it's gonna stand up to.
And check this out. Pretty stoked about that.
Yeah, you really couldn't ask for it to go better, especially with how quick it went. What did we say? 1 day and 4 hours, including about 8 hours of sleep?
1 day and 2 hours.
1 day and 2 hours.
26 and a half hours. We disassembled the whole truck, put the 4-link on, fixed the hinge on the door, cleaned and stripped the entire frame so it's ready for paint, and then prepped the whole front assembly and have the front.
Yeah, the whole front's clearanced, it fits, it all bolts back on. Axle is all welded up. It's this is pretty impressive. You guys work quick.
So we appreciate everything, man. We appreciate your shop, and it was awesome hanging out. Got a little bit more to do yet. You're gonna have to check that out on our channel, Deboss Garage, where we drag it down to a different part of California and keep working on it.
Yeah, so make sure you guys head back to Deboss Garage's channel. You can finish this build there once the next episode goes up. I'm excited to see how this goes. This is I feel invested in it at this point. Hopefully you guys do. This should be sweet. So
Awesome. Thanks a lot, man.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. You're awesome, and I hope we can do this again. Something new. If you want like a really quick job that you need like some hustling Canadians to give you a hand on, just call the Canadians. We'll be out.
Right on, guys.